Baseball men have always been an enigma. Cool under pressure, they exude confidence while captivating us with their skills. But every once in a while, one comes along that defies expectations. They're feared, admired, even worshipped. But above all, they're controversial. This is the story of one such man. A legend who personified passion, and whose life was a constant push and pull between brilliance and self-destruction. His name was William James Martin, but everyone knew him as Billy. And if you think this is a story of a ball player, well, it is. But not just any ball player. A man whose career spanned 3 decades and who managed 5 teams, including the New York Yankees. But that wasn't all. Billy Martin was a man who fought in bars, feuded with owners and managers, and even went to jail. He was the original baseball bad boy, and possibly the game's greatest ever manager. This is the story of Billy Martin, the man, the myth, the manager. Born in 1927 in Berkeley, California, Billy had a tough childhood. His father abandoned the family, and his mother, Helen, was forced to raise 6 children alone. Helen was a fighter, though, and Billy learned that from her. When he first arrived at Yankee Stadium as a rookie in 1946, everyone noticed how fiery the kid was. A few years later, Billy formed a tight bond with Mickey Mantle and Whitey Ford. They were known as the Three Musketeers and spent many a night carousing around New York. Billy's reputation as a scrappy fighter preceded him. Once he got into a massive bar fight with Boston Red Sox slugger Ted Williams. It took 20 people to pull Billy off Ted. But it was during one of these wild nights out that Billy met his future wife, Jerry. In 1951, Billy and his brother-in-law, along with some friends, decided to visit the famous Copacabana nightclub in Manhattan. It was there that Billy encountered 2 men who would later become his sworn enemies, both named Johnny Blood and Johnny Murphy. One thing led to another, and soon Billy found himself in a massive brawl with the Johns. Blood ended up with a fractured eye socket, and Murphy suffered a broken nose and jaw. To make matters worse, Billy's brother-in-law, along with his other friends, were all arrested. The Yankees were furious, and despite Billy's claims of innocence, they traded him to the Chicago White Sox. The trade devastated Billy, and he began to lose games almost immediately after arriving in Chicago. After hitting only 13 home runs and driving in 59 runs in 1958, Billy was sent back to the minors. He played 4 more seasons in the minors and then retired in 1961. He was only 34. But retirement didn't suit Billy. In 1965, Casey Stengel, the legendary Yankees manager, became ill, and Billy filled in. When Stengel died, Billy became the full-time manager. He'd go on to manage the Texas Rangers, the Oakland A's, and finally back to the Yankees again. In Billy's early years as manager, he learned a lot from guys like Casey Stengel, as well as other managers he worked with, like Bob Lemon and Marty Marion. He studied them and absorbed everything he could about managing. Billy's teams weren't just disciplined and hard-working. They were aggressive and exciting to watch. He stole more bases and hit more triples than any other team in the league. He wasn't afraid to bunt, to take risks, and to play for extra innings. His teams won close games because he pushed them to be better. He wasn't just a great manager, he was a revolutionary. He brought a new style of baseball to the game. He forced teams to make mistakes, and he took advantage of those mistakes. If they didn't make mistakes, he made sure his team would capitalize on the opportunities that were given to them. He developed a style of play that forced opponents to beat themselves, and it worked. His teams won more games than they lost. In 1977, he managed the New York Yankees to their 20th World Series title. He was named Manager of the Year 3 times. But his teams weren't always in contention. Sometimes they were so far out of it that he pulled his starters in the 6th inning just to give the fans a break. The players loved him and hated him at the same time. They loved his intensity, his passion, and his commitment to winning. But they hated his tantrums, his tirades, and his endless battles with umpires, owners, and the media. He was fired and rehired by George Steinbrenner more times than anyone can remember. He was suspended by the commissioner for fighting with an umpire. He was fined for criticizing the media. He was even arrested for assaulting a fan. In 1978, He was involved in a near-fatal car accident that left him with a broken leg and shattered kneecap. Despite being in a wheelchair for months, he continued to manage his team, albeit with a lot of pain and difficulty. In his final interview before the accident, Billy spoke about his love for the game and his passion for his team. He said, "I love this team. These guys are my family, and I'll do anything to help them win." Tragically, Billy never got the chance to fulfill that promise. On Christmas Eve 1979, he was reading Christmas stories to underprivileged kids when he suffered a fatal heart attack. He was only 52. The news of his passing shocked the baseball world. Mickey Mantle, Whitey Ford, and other former teammates and rivals eulogized Billy, praising his intensity, his passion, and his love for the game. Billy Martin may not be remembered as one of the greatest managers in baseball history, but he was certainly one of the most beloved. He was a man who lived and breathed baseball. He was a man who played the game with passion and managed with intensity. He was a man who fought in bars and feuded with owners, but who also managed 5 teams to the World Series. He was a man who won more games than he lost, but who was often overshadowed by his own demons. Billy Martin was a man of contradictions, a flawed hero, a larger-than-life character who embodied the spirit of the game. And maybe that's why we remember him so fondly, because he reminded us that baseball, like life, is a game of inches and heartbreaks, of triumphs and tragedies, of beauty and chaos, all played out on a field of dreams. But was Billy Martin the greatest manager who never fulfilled his destiny? That's for you to decide.